My guest at this time can soon be in action as part of Limitless Wrestling's Vacationland Cup on Saturday, December 19th. It's Lee Moriarty. Lee, welcome to the Wrestling Inc. Daily. Thank you very much for the time today.
Thank you for having me.
Moriarty. Did I butcher that? Like a soft R there. I think I got it the second in there. So.
No, you're good. Yeah, it's kind of a tricky name to pronounce sometimes.
Yeah, it's rough. I had to practice a couple times and I still blew it here. Well, anyway, Lee, I've had the pleasure of getting to see you call your action at Warrior Wrestling here in Chicago. Man, you really are just such a standout right now in the indies, and it's getting smaller and smaller by the day. Before we get into, Vacationland Cup, your career and all that, can you tell me a little bit about yourself, your background, like how you got into pro wrestling, all those great things?
I grew up a fan of martial arts and things like that, so I was always into fighting and combat sports. I discovered wrestling when I was 11 or 12. I liked the combination of the sport and the art. And once I was in high school, I started looking around for a wrestling school. I found one about 10 minutes from where I lived at the time.
Oh, okay.
Went to high school, went to college for a little bit for graphic design, saved up the money, got my car, paid off wrestling school, and I started training in 2015.
Okay, so what was the school that was 10 minutes from your house? Was it just some local guys, or was it anybody we'd know?
It was called PWX. It was ran by Brandon Kay and Dean Radford. They also Brandon Kay was one of the people that helped get Kurt Angle ready for his WWE career.
Wow.
So he there's a picture and everything with Kurt Angle, training with Kurt Angle. And I remember at one point Kurt came to the school and talked to us and all that. It was really cool.
Wait, whoa, well, let's take a second here. So wait, Kurt Angle came to school. What was that experience like? What was the advice? Because you were very early in the process then, I would imagine. That's got to be crazy having Kurt at your disposal.
Yeah, he didn't come until I had graduated and I was already wrestling, but he had a friend who wanted to begin training.
Okay.
So this was like after I graduated. Once this friend began training, he came down for a visit. And the reason he recommended that school was because Brandon Kay was there. He also worked out with another guy who's famous around local independent wrestling called Sean Evans, also known as Shocker. He worked SmackDown a few times back when he was around.
Sure.
But yeah, it was really cool, like meeting Kurt Angle and talking to him and getting advice just about like wrestling and all that, like how he got into it from Olympic wrestling.
And he was like, "Here's the secret, right? You gotta wear funny hats. That's like part of the gimmick." I don't know. So you start out, and before this, you were martial arts. So I'm guessing the name Lee. You come out, you dress kind of like Bruce Lee. Is this like what is the deal with you and Bruce Lee? Just a homage? Like what's the connection?
Yeah, Bruce Lee is my idol. So that was the guy I take a lot of inspiration from, and his philosophy and his discipline and things like that.
Yeah.
So, and my real name is like Lee and Moriarty. So that's where that all comes from.
Cool.
So it's still my real name, but it's more focused on Lee to pay tribute to him. And then I kept my last name for my family.
Okay, gotcha, man. And so, like, Taige style. What is this? Can you explain to everybody what this phrase is? What style you're trying to popularize here?
Yeah, so Taige style I created because I didn't really have an identity when I was getting into wrestling. So a lot of the people I trained with, the main event, Duke Davis, the Gavel, David Lawless, Sean Phoenix, Honey Badger, Laura Lovelace, all these people, they had characters. They had these personalities. I didn't really have that. I was just a wrestler.
Yeah.
So it took me a while to find myself. My first year in wrestling, I suffered a shoulder injury. I had to get surgery. I was out for a little while. And then when I came back, only a few months in my return, I met DJ Z. I did a few seminars with him, or as you guys know, Joaquin Wild.
I was about to say.
Yeah. He invited me to Mexico. It was actually the time he had that like life-threatening injury.
Oh shit! Oh, were you there when that happened and he like almost died down in Mexico?
I wasn't there, but so like we talked maybe 2 months, and he told me like come down to Mexico while he was down there, because he was down there for like a month or so.
Yeah.
I think 2 weeks before I was scheduled to go down for just a week, that's when it happened. Oh. So like, and everybody was like really nervous and afraid. I was like, I'll just call the trip off because like his health is way more important. He told me like, no, don't do that. I went down there and I stayed with someone named Lowrider and his family.
Yeah.
And I just went around Mexico and trained out down there. I came back and I felt like I had a new sense of who I was. Later in that year, I developed Tiger style. I had a mask and everything like that. And as time goes on, I just kept developing it more and more and like bringing pieces together. Like it's all caps. It's reference to MF Doom, a hip hop artist. The colors I use are reference to Wu-Tang Clan or Pittsburgh's Black and Yellow. And basically what it is my own style of professional wrestling. I don't believe in having a set style or a form because every opponent's different. So I like to use lucha libre, martial arts, catch wrestling, the world of sports style. And like you hear it a lot, hybrid wrestling, you're a hybrid wrestler and things like that. But it's more than just the wrestling. It's my aesthetic. It's my approach to wrestling visually and not just physically.
Yeah, for sure. How different was it for you training down in Mexico as opposed to training in the States? What's it like compared to the States?
The training wasn't that different. It's a lot more strict. But the weird thing about training in Mexico is, so in here, your parents have to sign a waiver if you're under a certain age for you to train.
Right.
In Mexico, you can pretty much start training when you're 5 years old. So because I was new to Lucha Libre, one of the classes I was in, it was probably kids from like 5 to 11 years old. I'm 21 or something at the time, and I'm in a class with a bunch of kids learning llaves and all these submission holds and stuff from El Oriental. And then one of the other things I got to do was while I was down there, Lowrider is a trainer, and he would have kids come in and learn Lucha Libre. And one of the things he told me is in Lucha, they don't have a lot of strong striking ability compared to they do here in the States. Okay. So I actually got to lead a class and like help kids develop more striking. So that was really cool.
Here's how you teach a 5-year-old to pull a punch, I guess. I don't know. I didn't know that, man. That's wild. Like when you're working with kids that young, I mean, you more cautious, I would imagine, than working with adults and things. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't really get physical with the kids.
Yeah.
Mostly Lucha Libre is a lot of rolls and stuff. They don't do the high impact stuff, especially that young. I think they teach them the basics of grappling stuff first. So when I was in that class, they didn't do any I didn't body slam any little 5-year-olds.
Okay, cool. That's really what I think everybody wanted to know was where you choke slamming kids. All right, wonderful.
I was tempted, but I didn't do it.
Okay, well, good. That's you have a good moral compass. That's the ethically correct thing that you did, Lee. I'm interested about you talking about finding this Tiger style. Like, I think a big part of the indies right now, especially in the United States, is like finding that identity. I mean, I feel like wrestlers can become their own action figures these days. Like, what's it been like for you just kind of finding who you are? And really, I mean, of the people in the past year that have, sizzled to the top, I feel like you got to be considered at the, of the unsigned talent, Lee. You're right top of the heap at the moment.
Oh, thank you. It's cool because I'm not just finding myself in wrestling. I'm finding myself in my personal life and who I am. And I think they kind of go back and forth on each other and help me develop both of them. Even during the pandemic, the first shutdown and when there wasn't wrestling for months, unless you were signed.
Right.
I kind of just played around with that aesthetic. I developed ways of doing intros and videos and stuff. I practiced editing, all these different things to try to develop it more and more.
Yeah.
And it was just kind of figuring out who that person was. I'm still developing it. Like I don't have my final, it'll never be final because I'll always be changing and evolving, but I don't feel like I have it just down yet to like, if I was to present it, I don't think it's finalized yet. This is not the final product of what I want it to be.
Yeah,
I think a few more months.
It sounds a lot like what I interviewed Jonathan Gresham a couple months ago, and he's very much in that phase right now, like really kind of after years of being this great grappler and things, like starting to find that the foundation, that octopus identity. Does that resonate when I say something like that to you?
Yeah, definitely. He was one of those guys. I remember people talking to me about him all the time. He was an amazing wrestler. And he just needed that one thing to really stick out. And once he did the foundation, that was really his big thing. Like I remember first seeing that mask, the tentacles and stuff like that, and how cool it was. And it's cool watching his pieces develop, like him getting the robe, him getting the mask, him getting the flag, having this. I remember the promo he did with when he was just talking about restoring honor and Tracy Williams calling at the end of the promo on the phone. And then it leads to the finals of the pure tournament.
Right.
So it's like this long-term storytelling when you're developing a character too. and
Yeah.
that's kind of what I wanted to do. So stuff that happens to me through pro wrestling will be able to develop who I am, and then there'll be callbacks later on.
Yeah, dude. That's awesome, man. It sounds like you're enjoying that, enjoying the
Yeah,
journey at the moment, the best you can.
definitely is my favorite part. Is just, especially being a free agent, I have a freedom to pretty much do whatever I want and figure out who I am for myself first before getting signed.
Yeah, and well, you're having to do this, and a lot of wrestlers get to hit the journey, the stride that you're on, or not a lot. I'd say the top of the top get to kind of go on that stride and do this kind of exploration you're talking about. But man, it's got
Mhm.
to be way harder doing this all now, right? Less shows and everything. How much of a change of pace, I guess, has it been for you? How have dealing with the independence during the pandemic and everything?
So it's I don't feel like my schedule is that different for real, for real.
Okay.
Like I released a list of my matches throughout the year. And if you look at the number of matches I had this year compared to the number of matches I had last year, it's not that far off. And I think I wrestled a lot more in clusters so that I could then like distance for a week or two. So I wouldn't have to be around or things like that. And like I also because I've been getting no more, I've been getting more opportunities. So those doors are opened a lot more for me. And also me being an artist, even though I'm not in a ring, I'm still developing a part of who I am and I'm still trying to stay relevant that way. So I'm always figuring out a way to keep evolving, even if I can't be in a wrestling ring right now.
For sure, man. Well, and that brings us to Limitless Wrestling, the Vacationland Cup. How did you get involved with this 12-man tournament here?
So I've always wanted to wrestle for Limitless Wrestling. I would watch it all the time. I'm a big fan of their production and things like that.
Sure.
I remember I was in an interview with Malcolm Bivens and I talked about how that was one of my bucket list goals. I think they heard that, they reached out, and now I'm in the tournament competing. And
Sure.
I guess I had a good year, so they thought I was deserving to compete for this title.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I miss Malcolm Bivens. I wish he.
Yeah.
Anyway, there's a lot of cool wrestlers here. One of the names that stood out to me, Myron Reed. I would imagine you two would get along really well in the ring together. I mean, what do you think about a possible match with him? And like, who else on the card or in the tournament are you looking forward to getting to wrestle here?
Myron Reed and I've wrestled twice before, but it was years ago, way before we are the persons we are now.
Okay.
Like you see him develop with MLW and things like that, him find himself way more than me with Tiger Style. I feel like it'd be completely different matches now, and I really want to face him at some point. And pretty much, I want to work with everyone in the tournament. So I wish it was like a round robin thing, so I could just fight everyone.
Yeah.
But I know it can't be that way. I really want to work with Daniel Garcia. I've known him probably longer than all the other Buffalo boys. But the funny thing is, every time we're scheduled to be on the show, something happens and the show doesn't, like, we just haven't been able to meet yet. So I want to work with him. He's probably my favorite independent wrestler to watch right now.
Yeah.
And also Blackwood, he's another one I would look forward to facing. But pretty much everyone, like, I could just keep going, like Casanova, Ace Romero. It's just too hard to, like, really narrow it down to say, like, one or two names.
A match with Ace is much different than a match with Myron. It's a lot more man you got to work with there.
Yeah, I can handle it, though. That's the Tiger Style is
Okay,
adapting.
Dude, you and Myron, that was the name that stood out to me. I'd love to say, and I didn't know you guys had that history. I mean, I would imagine now that you kind of had a few more light bulbs go off over your head, you guys definitely would have a lot more fun out there for sure. So with this though, you bring up Myron, he's an MLW, Ace, Impact Wrestling. Like, what's your next goal here? I mean, are you talking to people? I would, because the thing is, Lee, like, not many people have been able to get over in the past 12 months. I mean, I feel like it kind of like if you had momentum going into 2020, you were in a good spot. It was difficult for a lot of people to pick up momentum, and you were one of the very few to do that. I mean, are you talking to people right now?
I'm not talking to anyone, but I'm being watched. Like, I know because I've gotten those messages, like people saying keep it up, and I know I'm being watched. But so far right now, my focus is on helping the independent scene kind of stay afloat right now in these difficult times. And at some point next year, if I can pursue a contract, that's going to be the goal.
So you see yourself right now as somebody who, like, as much as you need the indies, kind of need you a little bit as well at the moment. So you are happy with the position you have here to close out 2020, correct?
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to say the independents need me. There's so many good wrestlers, they don't need me.
Sure.
But I feel like I have something to offer, and if I can use this to help people like move forward in the state of things now, I'm going to do that as best of my ability, because I wouldn't be anything if I didn't have independent wrestling. I love PWG. I loved all those things growing up. I used to watch AIW in my computer lab, and now I'm wrestling for them. So I want to help the independent scene as much as I can while I'm still here.
Yeah, dude.
And when it's time for me to go, it is what it is. But right now, until that contract's put in front of me, I'm 100% an independent wrestler. I'm focused on helping.
Yeah, dude, it's awesome. I had at one of the Warrior shows, it was Joey versus Warhorse, and I remember after the show, I said, Joey, I can't believe Warhorse beat you, and he goes, guys got to beat me, man. I got to keep giving back to the indies here, man, and help talent keep growing. So I love hearing things like what you just said, man. It's nice to hear the positive communal messages in the independent scene, you know?
Yeah, independent wrestling means a lot to a lot of people professionally and personally. So especially people like Janela, he doesn't have to wrestle for the independents, especially during a pandemic. He chooses to because he loves wrestling and he wants to give back.
Yeah, for sure, 100%. And I got to get your take here. While I got you, Lee, you know, there was some big news last night. I mean, just kind of let's toss the playbook out here. Sting, man, Sting is back in pro wrestling. Like, what is your personal reaction to the fact that Sting is now back in the world of pro wrestling at AEW?
I think it's really cool the way they've done stuff with talent. The nostalgia thing has been really cool. Like Team Taz, I love Team Taz.
Okay.
So them bringing in Sting, I don't know if he's going to be in the ring or if he's just going to be an advisor, thing like that. No, we don't know yet. But I think it's really cool to see him and see people's reactions to him. He's an icon, literally, not just in his nickname.
Yeah, and like the other thing last night coming out of like all the news here is like AEW now maybe with Impact, also AAA, also maybe New Japan. Like, do you like seeing all of these bigger companies working together, or do you wish that they'd all kind of keep their space and give you more places to kind of navigate separately? I don't know how you feel about that.
I love it because it's not often you get to see dream matches. Now there's opportunities like you see Chris Bay competing in the Super J Cup.
Yeah.
It's those rare things, and it can work. You can have working relationships but still be competing. There's basketball players that train together on off seasons and they still compete as hard as possible when it's the regular season. I love seeing it. It's really exciting. And you see people tweeting on both sides of Impact and AEW. You'll see who was it? FTR.
Yeah.
They were just tweeting out tag team names. They weren't saying anything but tag team names, and it gets people just hyped and excited about that. That's really cool.
Yeah, dude. All right, man. Well, Lee, I want to thank you so much for the time, man. It's been awesome watching you find your groove here in 2020. I think you're gonna have a very bright 2021 for sure. Take us home, man. Anything else you want to say about Limitless Wrestling, the Vacationland Cup, maybe where people can find you, follow you, all those great things?
Definitely watch me become the new Limitless Wrestling Champion December 19th on IWTV Live. And you can find me on Instagram and Twitter at Apex of Combat.